So our guest tonight is a man that may be familiar to some of you, and whether you know him or not, you have been involved with him, whether it's through Green State or Upstate Elevator or Nectar's, Mr. Chris Walsh. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
Awesome. So let's start a little bit. We had part of why we're doing this in person now is we actually had you call in a couple weeks ago, and we had a great response. People were super interested to get dispensary perspective.
Yep.
Right. So we'll talk a lot about your other roles and titles, but you're also general manager of Grassroots Vermont,
right,
which is one of our 5 licensed dispensaries
Correct.
in Brandon. So let's talk a little bit about, before we get into the medical stuff, kind of what's your background? People heard you and they hear you on the radio. They probably recognize your voice now. What's your background with cannabis? And let's start with Nectar's, I mean.
So Nectar's really is why, Nectar's and the fact that I have a green thumb, I've grown tomatoes and cannabis and a bunch of things, and I've always been sort of good at cultivation. So, it's kind of a two-pronged interest. One is seeing the parallels with like the craft beer and the bar business, another regulated drug that, the state is known for, that, I kind of came up through the ranks, starting as a security guard, bartender, and, just always mindful that you are serving something that affects somebody psychoactively. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's just ingrained in me. So having an interest in, the service industry with a product that you need to be responsible about,
right.
And then understanding branding and the fact that everybody's basically selling a similar product. So how do you do it differently? How do you give customer experience? That simultaneously with my love of all plants and really getting very good at growing, the two paths kind of converged.
Yeah, I can totally imagine. I mean, and we talk about the Green Thumb. You guys offer classes, over at Green State. We've had a lot of people ask about classes, so throw that plug out there. Because I know you guys have some awesome, Jocelyn's in there too. Yeah,
Jocelyn and Irene and Kelsey and Dylan and the 2 Sams, and it's a great team over there. And we do classes on the weekends to try to max out attendance. But I started the classes. Jason and Irene are doing them now. They're getting more refined. We're seeing what people are responding to, and it's great. And to be able to use a CBD plant. It's sort of a loophole where I've been to cultivation classes in other states where you're using a tomato plant, and you just,
like, imagine there are buds on here. And
it's also just, the whole structure of the plant's very different. So like when we do cloning classes, to be able to use a hemp plant and to clone and to be able to girdle all the rough bark off it and split it and see the fibers, and you really walk away successfully understanding how to clone a cannabis plant via the cousin, a hemp plant. So that kind of opened it up for us, and we had distributors coming in on weekends and saying, I haven't seen this anywhere else in the country. So we really feel that it was an innovative move.
Yeah.
And it makes the classes what they are because everything's hands-on and it's completely legal.
Exactly, and I know that not all of them are doing classes and not as organized, certainly as Green State, where you guys have a real schedule and a curriculum and all this. But just generally want to plug people who aren't in Burlington. Go to your local grow store. There are really, really good resources there. People who will generally give you good advice, spend a few minutes talking with you. Most of them you can show your Heady Vermont card and get a discount too. So throw that out there.
Yep, and we also do discounts for medical card holders.
And you guys do for medical patients.
And veterans.
Awesome. See, good to know. So let's talk a little bit about how kind of you got to here. People are familiar with Green State. People are familiar with Upstate.
So I bought Nectar's in 2003 and worked there every day. First couple of years, 7 days a week, getting out at 5, 6 in the morning. Total grind. The only reason I could tolerate it is my love of music. That's what kind of kept me going. The rest of it was bordering on mental abuse after a couple of years. It's a tough business, and it's a young guy's business. I mean, you gotta.
And let's not let the hairline fool you. I mean, you see the gray beard, but want to make sure these are real. That's a real hairline right there.
It is.
The stress maybe got some gray, but it didn't take the entire top off like some of us on this stage.
That's a 52-year-old hairline right there. If you want to zoom in, no hair plugs. I was always looking to segue out of Nectar's day to day. I'm still the owner. I've got 3 partners. I own the building with the same 3 partners, but I just started to feel like I wasn't evolving, and I wasn't fulfilled. And then, simultaneously, as I was scanning the horizon, trying to figure out my next move, legalization really started to pick up pace here. That's when I got involved with VTCC, Will Rapp, Alan Newman, Hinda Miller, Bill Lofi, Dan Chang, Dylan Rapp, and
Rob Williams.
Rob Williams.
My man Rob, who's watching now.
The famous Rob Williams, who got me, turned me on to yak, and now I eat it every day with my eggs.
There you go.
So, hey Rob, you got to call me too, because we gotta start working on some paperwork. So, I started really with VTCC, and then Dylan and I, Dylan had already started Green State as an e-commerce site, and then, we kept saying, like everybody else that has grown weed in the past, why isn't there a grocery store in Burlington? And so I'm not an owner. I saw that in the on the promo today. I'm one of the founders of the store and co-creator, but I don't own it. I own a part of Upstate Elevator. I just want to be clear about that. So, we opened, and it was a little bit slow going at the beginning, and there was the classic Vermont sort of like, you guys open up in Burlington, and sort of territorial, that there was guys before us, like Rick at Green Thumb Gardening. Shout out to Rick, who's sort of the godfather.
Yeah, out there, Rick the Rev.
Yep, Rick the Rev has been doing it longer than anybody, but we have a good relationship with him. And now the funny thing is, after sort of the new kid on the block getting on the receiving end of some negativity, people see what we're doing for the community, what we've done for CBD. We've helped with genetics, and we've given a lot of advice to farmers, and now with these classes. And now, ironically, there's 12 or 15 new grow stores in the state. So I'd like to think that we encourage other people to do it. Yeah.
Well, and let's talk maybe about kind of that community, because we were talking a little bit more. We're actually talking about sort of beer versus cannabis, and kind of, you've been involved in the cannabis community for a long time. You've been involved as it's transitioned out into the light, and now involved in like the formal sense, not only, as somebody who's directly involved with the dispensary, in addition to Upstate that we were talking about. So kind of, what's your perspective of the community, and, kind of what do you think we need to do to improve this community as far as where we're at right now in 2018?
Yeah, the parallels to the craft beer and the bar business are uncanny. And, I've been saying it for a while. Alan Newman says it every time we get together. Dylan Rapp says it. But, you're basically, again, you have a regulated product. And people are probably not going to like to hear this, because it takes the romance out of it, even though Vermonters grow some of the best weed in the country. We're all going to be selling the same product at some point, especially with adult rec dispensaries. I'm going to sell the same beer as the 3 bars next to me. So how do you distinguish yourself? And a lot of it's the customer experience, service. If you have a good brand, you branch out into merchandise, and you start branding events and putting your name on things. And unfortunately, that is what's going to happen here. It's happening in Colorado, and it's happening in California. And I also think one of the reasons that merch is getting big in the cannabis sector, merchandise, is that you have these really stringent tax regulations on cannabis. So if you can sell a bunch of non-cannabis under the roof of your dispensary, it's you don't get whacked with all these horrible
the 280E
taxes.
and all that.
The 280E stuff. So you're seeing sort of what happened in restaurants in the 90s, where things are there's consolidation and there's specialization. And when adult rec hits here, unfortunately we're not a popular state, so we're really going to have to count on tourism like we do for other industries in the state, craft beer, skiing, etc. We're a big tourist state. So
and that's why we have tap rooms, right? I mean, that's such a good example of something we've done with beer,
right?
That we could maybe learn from. There's not going to be consumption on site, probably, but like you said, shaping it towards a tourism economy.
If there's customer loyalty with your regular people, and that's easy. I mean, I've learned that in the bar business. But you're going to have people that are coming here specifically to ski and smoke some of Vermont's finest. And how do you get that person? It's not because they have a customer reward card and you keep punching it, they keep coming back to you. They're going to get off of a flight in Burlington, and you're going to have to sort of convince them to go to your dispensary before they even get off the plane.
Right.
And that's where the branding comes into
Yeah.
it. And I don't think it's a negative term, although when I do talk about it, some real hardcore cultivators are like, oh, dude, commercialization of cannabis. But I mean, that is what's happening. And there's a proven, there's a proof of concept in other businesses that will work here.
Well, and like you said, it's kind of like where I think, I know I identify with this too, is like, how can we get the OGs, up to the regulated standard? Right. And I know that California, this is perfect segue into talking about California. Yep. That's a place where they had a ton of trouble, and you've got people, getting raided and shut down, and there's green dots and red dots.
Yep.
Regulation comes, and they have to then regulate everybody who's not compliant, right?
Right.
So, when we're kind of bringing people from that underground culture into a not only regulated, but very, very highly regulated.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of what you saw in California and what's going on out there. And
well, I'll tell you, even though it's the biggest cannabis market in the world, the irony now is they're in this sort of reboot reset thing where these new standards went from parts per million to parts per billion. So, one of the things I didn't anticipate when I was out there was it is the perfect time to go out to California and start a brand, because there's a lot of brands now where there might be class action suits using the list from the dispensaries. If somebody had a dirty product and you can prove that, you can then just follow the trail through customers at dispensaries. It's all documented who bought what, certain cartridges that were dirty, and you're gonna see big class action suits happening with brands. So if I didn't have 4 other jobs right now, I would probably move to LA and bring the Nectar's brand and try to bring Nectar's brand into cannabis, because in the last couple weeks, Jimmy Buffett signed a deal where Coral Reefer is now going to be a brand.
Coral Reefer, okay. I mean, that's better than Margaritaville, so
way better.
That's good.
And then even Woodstock, the guys that own the IP for the intellectual property for Woodstock sold it to one of the big Canadian firms. It was either Privateer or Canopy maybe, for a big amount of money. But when I went out to LA, I met with some people that were interested in Nectar's brand, and they were sort of pitching this idea even before these sales happened. But we are a lifestyle brand. You think of Nectar's, you think of fish, you think of music festivals, you think of great craft beer, and you think of weed. I mean, it's like probably the majority of our customers have something with THC either on them or in them.
Right. I mean, I've never, Reggae Sundays, who would have think,
Yeah, I mean, that might be the one
Shout out to Big Dog.
Shout out to Big Dog, shout out to Jocelyn, shout out to Solomonic, shout out to Miard.
Man, well, so, kind of looking at, like you said, it's almost like a lot of these places that have gotten going are kind of having to reset and start from scratch, because now we have regulations, right? Yep. So let's maybe use this chance to like get a snapshot of where we're at with medical right now, right? Because you guys are in Brandon. You guys were the 4th license that was issued a couple years ago. The smallest, I think, as far as patient count. But you've been, it's sort of like almost under the radar, at least for people up here in Burlington, even though dispensaries can deliver statewide, right? So maybe can you give us a little snapshot of where medical's at and kind of in general with the state, and what you guys are doing down there at Grassroots to kind of, and what's different about you guys from other dispensaries besides the location?
Well, I'll start with that one just because it's fresh in my head. When I got in there, I mean, we are clearly the smallest, and the people that work there, all my coworkers are extremely passionate, and they're in it for the long haul, and it's just clear from day one. It's one of the reasons I took the job, is that everyone's highly motivated and very autonomous, and they get in, they punch in, and they go to work, and they are really dedicated to the plant and our patients. I've been using the analogy lately that we're kind of like having a seafood restaurant in a fishing village. Like you would have to have an incredible quality of fish to get any of the fishermen to come out of their house to actually spend money eating somebody else's fish. So, being in sort of the breadbasket of Vermont, if you will, I mean, my drive to work every day is amazing. I just drive by these beautiful farms, and, the whole CSA movement is big down there, getting shares of farms and you know, a lot of handcrafted, artisanal, all the buzzwords that you associate with a Vermont product.
Yeah.
We really try to exemplify that because we are in farm country. So,
right.
you know, we are.
Well, when people hear Rutland County and they think about, you know, they think about downtown Vegas and they get the wrong idea. And like, Brandon's beautiful.
Yeah, no,
you know?
totally.
I mean,
it's I hear Rutucky and Rut Vegas, and I hear all those.
Rutucky, yes.
Yeah.
I'm taking that one.
Yeah, take it. It's yours.
Man.
But you know, Brandon is absolutely gorgeous, and people really do know like produce and vegetables and growing, and a lot of our patients are curious about our growing methods. You know, it's you can tell that it's a real agricultural community.
Right.
I mean, the conversations that we have with patients are far more sophisticated than what I hear at an adult rec dispensary in Colorado.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. People know. Yeah, they're not. They're asking the
is this dank? Is this dank?
Right.
You know.
Yes.
So you know, and we are small, and we are proud of being small. And every plant is trimmed by hand. We don't use any automated trimming. We don't use any automated anything. Every plant's hand watered, touched every day. It's like. You know,
Get
similar.
that loved up.
It's very similar to raising animals. Like you have to spend time with each plant, touch each plant, talk to each plant, and you know that might be a little bit like new agey or whatever you want to say, but the plant really absorbs the energy of the grower. So you've got to have good intentions from the moment you pop those seeds to the minute you cut it down.
Yep.
And I firmly believe that.
So what are, you know, and I know that we've got our, you know, people who read Heady Vermont who watch all this, and bring it over this way, you know, they have a decent idea of what's going on with medical and why some people, you know, choose to do it. So maybe like, what are from within the cannabis community, you know, which we're all various parts of, what are the biggest misconceptions? You know, when people think about the dispensaries, you know, and then maybe what are the actual biggest challenges that you have?
Oh, I think the biggest misconception is that all these medical dispensary owners are getting rich and becoming millionaires. That is very far from the truth. Because we are not open to the whole state, you have a very limited amount of clients, and someone has to go through a process. It would be like an application process to go into my bar. You know, it's insanity when you think of it and put it in that perspective.
It takes 3 months.
Yeah, and you know, the margins are not that big in cannabis, and it's another sort of, when I say this to people, they really like, you can see them sulk and bum out, and you know, lately I'm talking to people that want to get prepared to get into the adult rec market, and some of the things I say, they really do not like hearing.
They're like, wait, I don't just shake the money tree and it all falls out, you mean?
Not at all. And you know, again, people are probably going to be sick of me making comparisons to the bar business, but you know, you basically will all make similar margins, because that's, you get to a point similar to bars where you're buying or
wholesale is
something,
X, retail is Y,
and everything's set,
Z.
and then it's really may the best man win, who can serve the product the best, who has the best knowledge, who has the best bud tenders, and it's customer experience really, because the product's going to be the product. And specifically, if adult rec does not have vertical integration, and I'd like to talk about that because that seems to be a very controversial product. Topic.
No, I think let's definitely talk about that.
But if we don't have vertical integration in adult rec, then you're really going to have the same product, because you're going to have the dispensaries buying from wholesalers. So it's literally going to be the bar business. Everyone's going to have Budweiser. Everyone's going to have Heady Topper. Everyone's going to have stuff in between. And how do you decipher your dispensary versus somebody else, other than location?
Right. And that's probably, I mean, you know, we talk about having this like advanced market where consumers are making choices and there's open competition. You know, what do you think? We're probably three years away from that, maybe, when there's a real open, blown up. I mean, we know New York and New Jersey are going to change things nationally.
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to pick up the pace, only because there's money being left on the table, and you know, the state sees it, and things move very slow, and there's a lot of bureaucracy and stuff. But you know, I just hope that we're motivated by the amount of tax dollars that are just being left on the table.
Well, so if Chris Walsh is now the commissioner of marijuana starting tomorrow, congratulations.
Thank you. I've earned it.
What are the we'll get to this. We'll get to this after. What's the what are you implementing for tax and regulate for 2019? Understanding kind of where we're at. I use this numbers comparison all the time. Right now we're serving 6,000 patients. To some degree of efficiency and effectiveness, how are we going to get to 60,000 residents, 600,000 tourists, and then in 5 years, 6 million, people who are going to come and buy some sort of interact with Vermont cannabis? So
it's very simple. It's loosening up the advertising parameters that they have. I mean, it's part of the reason I brought up the analogy of, 50% of the gross that adult rec is going to get in the state is going to be tourism, hands down, guaranteed. And how do you get a tourist when he's off the plane for the weekend to come to you versus the 4 other guys in downtown Burlington? Not saying that there'll be 4, but there'll probably be more than 1, right?
Right.
So, you've got to basically get in touch with that customer before he even gets on the plane. And you've got to tell a story, and you've got to captivate him. And, I could talk endlessly about this because it's what I did at Nectar's. I basically convinced people that Nectar's is part of the TripAdvisor checklist, and on your Burlington bucket list,
you
have to go to Nectar's. And I did that way before you got here, I mean, that was, you drank that Kool-Aid before you got on the plane.
Well, so, and, advertising is going to be huge when we have kind of competition in do you think in 2019 that we'll have, I guess let's start with this. What do you think about cultivator licenses? And
I'm not answering any of your questions.
I'm just
riffing. So just bring it back home.
That's fine. Well, I guess I want to know, kind of how do you see medical interacting with adult use? Let's start there, because right now you guys are, I think everybody will, and tell me if you agree. I think that medical dispensaries will have an opportunity to do whatever they want with tax and regulate. I don't have a problem with that because I think that in the state's mindset, they are, and you are in this case, the ones who are doing this in a regulated environment. You've already proven you can do it up to regulation. So
and we've also spent a lot of money as sort of like the laboratories of what's working and what's not. Right. So, I do say some things that I think the other dispensaries aren't in support of. Like I am adamant about third-party testing, and I want to clarify that that's not.
And let's talk about what that actually, what does that actually mean? Because right now, what are you guys required to do for testing? Like, what is the statute?
You've got to have your cannabinoid profile on a label on your product, and so
that's what the state requires.
Yeah, right now. Now I am pushing for further testing for solvents and pathogens, and is your medicine clean, especially since you're ingesting this into your lungs.
Right.
We
talked about this too. If you're somebody who's sick, especially and you have medical, mold spores could really, if you've got
if you have a suppressed immune system, you could die from it.
Yeah.
The back to your question, which I'm really bad at tonight, answering things. I think that it all starts with the MMJ license holders. Yes, getting a first mover advantage. And I don't think it's like, setting us up for monopolies or anything like that. I think we've been the laboratories. We're the ones that have, through trials and tribulations, figured out what works and what doesn't work. And a lot more things did not work than did work. Right. And all of that has a price tag to it. And no one's getting rich in these medical dispensaries. And so I think we have earned the right to be guaranteed adult rec.
And licenses. I think that is question. And again, like me personally as an individual, knowing what the regulations are, it's not something that I think is worth arguing. I think where people get upset, and we talked about kind of the anxiety and the paranoia in this community, is that it'll be the only ones. Yeah. Right? So what can we do as a state to, with tax and regulate, open it up? Cultivator license, like we talked about testing. Yeah. Cultivation. Would you guys buy from, if there was a license where somebody could grow 1,000 square feet medical cultivator license, would you guys be open to supporting that if they go through testing, they prove that it's clean, you guys buy it and then sell it in your dispensary?
So I have mixed feelings about that. As someone, again, in the bar business, I'm sort of conditioned to buy from distributors and wholesalers, and there's a lot of convenience to somebody bringing stuff prepackaged. Each bottle's got a label on it. Like, that's sexy to me. Like that. Now that I'm living this day to day, to have something show up that's packaged and just ready to go on the shelves, all you got to do is scan it. That's huge.
It's not Farmer Tim showing up with a ball jar in the back.
No. Although Farmer Tim's weed's probably better than the mass-produced, but the controversy and the friends of mine that want to get into adult rec and kind of get in my face about this because they imply that I'm maybe sort of teetering on being a sellout, and I want to explain the logic to this. Is I am in support of no vertical integration in adult rec, and I'll explain why. Now that I understand the sort of ecosystem of how a vertically integrated dispensary works, and for those of you that don't know vertical integration, it is from popping the seed to growing the plant to cutting the plant down to manufacturing, making the edibles, everything under one roof. And you know, the cultivation side of things is very expensive. So
and right now, to be clear, medical requires vertical integration.
Correct.
So
correct.
The dispensaries are not doing all this because, you know,
No, that's-
I mean, they're doing all of it because they want to and they would anyways, but they're the only ones who are allowed to by
Yeah,
law.
we had no choice.
You know,
but we've also learned, again, going back to the MMJ license holders as these laboratories, it's very expensive, and your biggest, you know, money suck, labor, nutrients, electric, it all is cultivation. So what I want to say to everybody that's kind of looking at adult rec, and maybe you're in your 20s and you can pool a couple $100,000 together, is, you know, you could get a dispensary going for under $1 million in adult rec. I'm convinced. There's no way that you could even come close to that price if you're going to be vertically integrated.
Right.
If they take the medical laws and drop it into adult rec and force, let's say, you know, you're 25 and your friend's 25, you guys have some family money, you want to pool it together. Now that $800,000 is now turned into $5 million.
Right.
So some people say, oh, you guys are just supporting monopoly, but I say if vertical integration is jammed into adult rec, it's going to talk about a monopoly, all these young...
It's going to cut all the small people out if you're only allowed to do everything.
Right.
Right.
So the sort of wordplay is... The vertical integration isn't supporting monopoly. The lack of vertical integration is actually preventing monopolies.
Right.
Is that clear?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So we need kind of to figure out. I mean, and I push this a lot, that it starts with supply. You know, right?
Yep.
And that cultivation, having a cultivation standard,
Yep.
and having a testing standard, because
Yep.
that's what we see in Mass right now. I just got back from Mass. Shout out
Yep.
Altitude Organics. You know, went
I
down
saw
there
it,
and
I saw it in California too, you know,
Yeah.
and now the testing's got more stringent. So a couple things on testing, you know, I'm
Good, because we have somebody asking, Jesse Lynn's asking about organic certification too. So let's talk about testing and organics.
Yep. So testing, you know, I'm hearing from some of the other dispensaries that I'm really the only one that's supporting third-party testing. But I'll make it a very simple, compelling argument. Look at the other states. That's what they're doing. Okay, they're a couple years ahead of us. Why? With people saying, oh no, you know, it's easier to test and it's a business decision, and you know, it's not about the fox guarding the hen house, it just works in our business model. That's horseshit. You know, every other state's doing third-party testing.
Right.
It gives us integrity. It's in the medical community, it's in the food community, it's in all these other businesses. Why should Vermont be this exception where we test our own product?
Right.
It's not the Vermont way, and if we're going to go outside of Vermont with our brand someday and there's interstate commerce, don't we want to present a ethical product to anybody that's
Right.
interested in purchasing
And have
it?
the Vermont standard be the highest, most stringent standard, so
Amen.
that everything that comes out of Vermont.
Amen. And you know why California is making things so stringent? Because they had adult rec first, they had medical first, and they saw what a free-for-all it was when they weren't regulating testing. And so they've gotten extremely strict because there was a need for it. So
And we've seen products, you know, and we've seen in all these other states, we've seen product recalls.
Yeah.
You know, in Colorado, in Oregon,
Yeah.
in everywhere. It's safe to assume, and it's not a question of Big Brother and over-regulation. It's a question of going from nothing to something.
Well,
and
there's semantics going on in the state too, though, where some people are like, oh yeah, third party, but let's make it third party auditing. So third party auditing is when the state would come in and say, show me your chromatography machine, show me where you were trained, show me how many times a year you calibrate. But you know, that to me is symbolic. That's like, I came in, I checked your stuff, and then I leave, and who knows what.
Is the person doing the testing, do they know enough to ask the real no bullshit questions either, right? You know, it's like, if I bring in somebody from a lab in Massachusetts to ask those questions, it's different than if I bring in somebody who's a bureaucrat, you know, in Vermont, who's not a cannabis scientist, you know, or familiar with that. You know, so I think that is, when we talk to people from out of state, that just lack of third-party testing is huge. and it's not to shit on and say that everything is bad quality and all this. Is just say that there is a best practice, and that's, we don't let brewers test their own beer in house.
Yep.
But there's got to be some quality assurance before it goes out to the public.
Well, when you say what your ABV is, you then have to also get that tested third party just to make sure that your alcohol level is where you say it is. Even your labels have to be approved by the TTV down in Washington.
Right.
And my response to some of the other dispensaries is, why not third party testing? It's not going to cost anymore. It's not a hurdle. It alleviates this pressure. It's one less thing that you have to do, and it keeps everybody transparent and honest.
Well, and that's I think the big thing is the transparency,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of it is, again, there's a lot of, I think, anxiety and kind of paranoia,
Yeah.
In the cannabis community. A lot of
Yep.
it is people who don't want to miss the boat.
Yep.
I've been growing this for 30 years. I'm not going to miss the legal one.
Yep.
I'm the one who should be getting rich, like
Yeah.
all these people on this, or, people who want to invest or whatever else it is. But to be able to kind of step back and think about the entire system,
Yep.
which is where we're at right now.
Right.
I think this is a really important part in our cannabis history right now,
Right.
is the next few months and then what happens in January through May. Because we still are at such a baseline where having that supply, figuring out cultivation, to scale. I think, a lot of it in these other states, tax and reg comes through the medical dispensaries.
Yep.
So, not only do they earn the right to participate, but we need to expand the medical so that way we can grow that knowledge, right?
Yep.
So I'll ask directly, you guys there are only 5 licenses right now. What if there were 10 licenses? When it comes to competition, nobody wants to see another place open up right next door.
Right.
Obviously, but what do you think about the state lifting that cap? Or kind of what kind of competition would you invite, and what kind would you?
I'm a capitalist. I think competition brings the price down. It gives you a better product. It makes you be the best you can be. And I think that if you're a businessman, that is a comfortable concept. I think if you're in this for other reasons, you may be concerned about that. But I'm a free market guy. I think bring it, and may the best man win.
Compete.
Did somebody have a question you were asking about?
That's good. Yeah. Well, somebody actually specifically about organic.
And who is it?
So you were just.
Who
That
is
was
it?
actually Jessie Lynn, her and Matt are clean green organic certifiers.
Yep.
Which we know we'll talk to them. Vince, it's not a free service.
Yep.
It is a private company, and we interviewed Chris actually when he was out here in Vermont.
Yep.
Clean green's a market solution to a bigger problem. Right, we don't have a USDA organic certification.
Right,
even if we did, from my conversations with USDA, it'd probably be bullshit.
Yep.
They have no idea what's going on they barely regulate vegetables, never mind.
Yeah, no, clean green has been embraced on the West Coast and in Colorado, and it does have credibility. But at the same time, you are purchasing sort of a brand, and you're bringing it to the state, and they do have very stringent rules and regulations, but there needs to be certification, especially in with everybody growing hemp now, all these farmers, just like cannabis. I know you and I have been at meetings where it's come up, but we do need certification in the state, and I think, like you're saying, it needs, why not have the most stringent? And do I think it's clean green? Not necessarily. I think there's something that we can create in the state, but
I know Maine's done, Maine Mofca, I think, has put together some standards. The Maine Organic Farming and Gardening, they're like the NOFA of Maine, I think.
Yeah.
Who've done some. But,
so the question is what though? What is it?
I guess kind of an industry standard. Would you support us creating an industry standard? Does that mean it's strictly organic?
Yep.
No hydro, kind of what is a realistic industry standard?
I am for it. I'm vocal. You and I were in a meeting recently where I was talking about it. I would want the certification not to be profit driven. So I'm a little bit wary about some of these brands that are out there, if you will, that say we certify, and even though they have best practices, I really think Vermont needs to come up with their own rules and regs when it comes to
we've got one. Green Mountain CBD is calling their CBD USDA organic, which that'll be a future episode that we'll get into the full details. and you can hear my conversations with the USDA because they are absolutely wild and pretty terrifying.
Yep.
So you're in the CBD. Let's talk a little bit about CBD too, because you're in the CBD. You're in the CBD biz.
Yep.
It's exploding.
Yep.
You know, so upstate, you guys are all over the place.
It's unbelievable what we've done in less than a year. I mean, we're all over Vermont, Massachusetts, most of New England. We just got into New York City. You know, the brand, the look of the brand. You know, Dylan had an idea early on to sort of lean more towards lifestyle than wellness, and I think that, you know, sort of getting away from all the ganja imagery and pot leaves and, you know, using a name that has like multiple levels, because we spent months just saying, what does it do? Like, how do you describe this? And the word elevate, you know, and up.
Elevate the state, baby. I'm all for it.
Yeah, so
you know?
so I think the brand has a lot to do with it. I think it's a nice looking brand. Similar to other purchases, it seems that women are dictating the CBD purchasing for the family. So we kind of skew female. And I think going for lifestyle versus wellness with, you know, avoiding medical claims, even though there are clearly medical, you know, benefits to CBD, when you're leaning towards lifestyle, you can kind of stay away from any FDA dances.
Right.
And you know, we have really great products. I mean, our products are fantastic. We had an advantage of selling other brands of CBD at the store, Green State, and we kept a list of things to do and not to do. One of which is everybody that wants to try CBD, until we created our 2-capsule blister pack, the barrier of entry was $80, $70. People are like, oh, my doctor's telling me, you know, these boomers would come in with arthritis, and this poor guy who's never smoked cannabis in his life and never tried THC, and he's already wary, and then we do the whole spiel about how CBD can help your arthritis and anti-inflammatory, and he's like, okay, I'm sold. And I'm like, all right, that'll be, you know, $70 for a bottle of capsules. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? So I think, you know, the stroke of genius, and I got to give Dylan all the credit, because he's got a real mind for retail, was doing a product where, you know, we sell Healthy Living, City Market, all of our big accounts sell a 2-capsule blister pack for like $3.99. So you can try CBD for $3.99 and you feel the effects right away. It's not a residual product. Like, you get it the second it's metabolized.
Yeah, that's actually really smart. I mean, that's like a business school case study.
Yeah.
You know, in pricing and retail.
Yep.
How do you feel? You know, I mean, generally we know from HempFest last year, you know, that testing and labeling, it's so unregulated.
Yep.
You know, how do you guys guarantee that there's 20 milligrams in each capsule?
Yeah.
And do you think that's something that everybody, and how can other people do that? Because I think that's an issue that
the key is to test all your batches, not just test one thing and then milk that for the next year, which is very common in the CBD business. But we test particular batches, we post the results. I mean, that's the way to do it. You don't just you see this in some of the THC products too, where, you know, you buy a cartridge in Colorado and it's got the THC and the CBD, and that never changes on the strain. And, you know, to think that you're at 17.5% for 5 years on this one cartridge, it's just, you know, it's baloney.
Well, plus everybody needs to do batch testing anyways, because God forbid there's a product recall.
Yeah, you got to
You don't want to pull
identify it.
everything. You just need that one batch.
Yep.
You know, where do you see kind of the future of stuff moving forward with CBD? I mean, you guys are growing as a company, you know, bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see, and I guess let's talk specifically as like a real weed guy, THC and CBD, do you think that we're going to have issues with hemp, you know, and cannabis, you know, and THC grown outside? And as somebody who's got a commercial interest in, I mean, you know, you've got your warehouse gets contaminated or your grow gets contaminated, you know, you and hundreds or soon thousands of people are in trouble, you know. So do you think that's going to be a major issue? Is it one already? Sort of, what's your thoughts on how we keep the pollination issues?
You know, I don't think, as much as it would be great for the environment, I don't think we'll ever have a real outdoor THC cultivation business here. It's too short of a season, and you know, unless you wanted to grow like a 7-week indica that's this big and it's a real like stony high, that's really all you're gonna get. Like sativas, even a lot of these hybrids, they won't work outdoors. So you know, this fear mongering about hemp pollen pollinating cannabis, I just think that that's people that are trying to prevent other people from getting their peanut butter in their chocolate.
You know, I had a question here from Nate Burns asking if Green State's doing processing and extraction this fall.
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
There you go.
Nice and easy. We'll take a couple more questions on the live stream. On the live stream here, I want to ask you.
Well, let me just comment too, though, that you know, I was selling CBD for the last 2 years as a retail store and then as my own brand. I was the head of sales. I traveled all over the place. And, you know, CBD is really good for the cannabis movement in general. And I'll give my dad as a perfect example. I've now joke and say CBD is the gateway cannabinoid because
1,000%.
Here is a man who's got a military background, uber conservative, gave me shit my entire life. Can I say shit here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, gave me shit my whole life for smoking cannabis, and the guy has debilitating arthritis. He's a big golfer. He stopped golfing and started breaking my heart. I know I could never convince him to try THC. Mm-hmm. So you know when we
and you didn't want to dose him.
No,
you know, unknowingly.
I think I may have.
Yeah, right.
So I brought him some upstate CBD, and I said, Dad, just here's some reading to do. It's not psychoactive. You're not hearing this from me that's trying to like taint you.
Right.
You can read 17 white papers that talk about this and the anti-inflammatory effects. Long story short, he tried the capsules, and a couple weeks later called me. He's like, I played 9 holes today, and this is, you know, this is miraculous. I'm blown away. And I'm like, just admit to me that the cannabis plant has medicinal properties to it. And he said, I got to admit it. And now I've been able to segue into THC, and the way I'm doing it is by saying, Dad, if you think CBD is working now, when you bring in THC and you do a 1-to-1 ratio or a 2-to-1 ratio, the two really work off each other, and it magnifies the effects. It's that entourage effect.
Yep.
If you're getting pain relief or anti-inflammatory from straight CBD, and you mix a little bit of THC in there, it's that much more effective, you know? And you can also use CBD as a recruiting tool. It's like you can get people that still feel that THC and cannabis has a stigma onto something that's very similar, but you're not smoking weed, you're not getting high, and it's that much easier to gain confidence in the plant as a whole and sort of educate them and then like ease them into it. You know?
Yeah, I think that you definitely hit something. Even just not being afraid of the plant.
Right.
Right. Because you see it in the store. People come in and they see live plants and they're like, look around.
Well,
like, is this okay? Is this a real?
It's amazing though. That's really, you know.
And the novelty. They think it's so cool.
Yeah, and that's sort of when someone's a little bit wary at Green State, and we talk about CBD, and then we actually walk them over to a plant that has CBD in it, and they can see this. You know, it's not this nefarious, sinister thing that's gonna like grab your kids and consume it. It's this beautiful plant that's just, you know, there to heal, and that really sort of brings the everybody's guard down. If it's somebody that's resisting, I usually give them 30 seconds with a plant, and they just like, oh, okay. It takes the stigma away when you see that it's something that's not processed, well, barely processed. It's you grow it in the ground, you add water, add a soil, lights, and through miraculous alchemy out comes a cannabinoid that is just a human tonic. It's good for us on every level.
Well, and even like you said, you know, that if you like this, you really like this. You know, that gateway it's it's such a perfect analogy.
Yep. And we now at Grassroots, we have our patients coming in now, and sometimes they'll just do a straight CBD buy, which is another thing that I'm like, wow, you know, you have all this access to THC flower and cartridges and edibles, and you know, they're like, no, I'm just gonna take a bottle of this. Yeah.
And so do you see more demand in like the medical side for more like 1-to-1 kind of stuff? Are you guys doing more of that?
What I do see is I've had card holders that switched from other dispensaries to Grassroots, and obviously, with my background and my, you know, self-interest in another company, I think that I've probably given more CBD education to our patient services people than the other dispensaries, and I hear that all the time, like, wow, you guys really know your CBD. Like, all the patient service people at all dispensaries know THC and flowers and efficacy of certain strains, but they are focused on that solely. So I think with my background in CBD, our people up front are really well-rounded. And talk about how the two work synergistically.
Right.
You know.
Well, and I guess speaking of that, that's a good one. We'll do a couple others, and then get to my favorite segment of the night. The
I can't
people
wait.
want to get into this.
Yeah.
You know, they want to get into it. So you're somebody who's passionate. You know, not everybody's going to go out to like Oaksterdam, and some of these training programs are sketchy.
Yep.
What kind of advice can you give as somebody who is a job creator, you know, in this space as far as what people can do to get involved, whether it's just doing research or volunteer work or, you know, running the camera at the Heady Vermont live stream. Shout out to the Eli's back here.
It all starts with growing the plant, and I firmly believe that. And it's the first question that we ask in interviews at Grassroots is your background. And, you know, I used to do it at Nectar's. I didn't care what your experience was. I'm like, what are you listening to now? And what's in your playlist? What's in your car? Tell me the 5 bands you're listening to now. That's what I cared about. Kind of same philosophy. Have you ever grown? What strains? You know, what did you like about it? What didn't you like? What's your favorite part of growing? What do you hate the most? And, you know, when you start with those basics, you can adapt to any other part. It just sort of, the abilities grow exponentially, but you gotta, you know, it's like baseball. Like, you have to have the basics. You have to know how to hit, bunt, catch, and run. Right. You know, and so
and at least want to be on the field. You know, at least want to be around the sport.
Totally, and now, you know, grow some CBD. That's your proof of concept. Grow 10 CBD plants in your backyard, which you can't get in trouble for.
It's me right here. Yeah,
and if you can grow good hemp plants, you can grow good cannabis. I mean, they're exactly the same.
Really good advice. Much appreciate. Let's end maybe on, you know, like you said, you go all around, you know, in sales capacity. So you've been Maine, Mass, you were just in California.
I learned a great rosin technique in California that I bought.
Yeah, school us on some of the, what's the new tech from some of these states?
So, you know, there's, it's just like, again, like beer. There's rosin that's like Budweiser, and there's rosin that's Heady Topper. And the Heady Topper rosin takes a sophisticated process that's not just squeezing bud under pressure and heat, but there's a tumbling of keef, there's the freeze drying of keef so it doesn't oxidize. There's this whole sort of artisanal process, and I saw a master out there who's a PhD who like walked us through it, and you know, I believe in rosin because it's solventless and it's got all the terpenes, and if you're a concentrate person, I think rosin, we're just scratching the surface. So we're about to implement all this state-of-the-art equipment, and we're going to have the best rosin in the state coming soon. Yeah, lots of flavors.
Sneak peek coming soon. Best rosin. Well, hey, guess what? We got the Headies coming up, so.
Oh, wow.
Maybe we'll find out. You know.
Are we going to plug the Headies?
Crazy.
Right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Have you told your viewers that we have some interesting celebrity judges up our sleeve?
Well, no, because I wanted to make you say it, so then you would be on the hook in case they didn't show up and they'd blame you and not me. So, just let people know for the Headies, we are really excited. We're gonna work with Chris. We've been talking with Northeast Processing as well about some testing, and gonna have some details. We've got a lot more coming out, but yeah, you want to give us a little teaser, because you're out there in Cali, kind of representing the Headies. So.
Well, we, as you know, we're talking to some very well-known hip-hop celebrities that have at least given verbal commitments, and some well-known people at High Times. I guess we should leave it there until it's.
I think that's probably that's a pretty good teaser.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good teaser.
But I think we need to come out of the gate with credibility this year, because I think that some sort of cup in Vermont, we can own New England, and we can do it better than anyone. And if we had a live music component and some other things that the state's famous for, some craft beer and some good food, I mean, we can crush this.
I just hope, like, you know, in two years we're looking back at this and going, man, we just got 20,000 people on the Burlington waterfront with some of the biggest national acts and the most amazing cannabis that human beings can grow.
Burlington Jazz Fest with doobies.
Man, I like it.
I like it too.
Well, stay tuned, everybody out there, because we do have more details coming on. But with that being said, we're going to conclude tonight with everybody's favorite segment. You've heard about this segment. This is the whole reason that got you to come on today. I told you could be on Smoke Your Weed.
Yep.
So the biggest news segment, Eli's, you guys, now that we have a studio audience, you guys are going to have to help me out with this. So the segment is called Smoke Your Weed. It's called Smoke Your Weed. Okay, so on the count of 3, we're going to say, all right, and now our new most popular segment, and then we're all going to say it at once. Ready? All right, so tonight we're now getting to our favorite part of the night, the news segment. That segment is called Smoke Your Weed. All right, pretty good, guys. We'll work on the enthusiasm. Sean, can you give us one more wide shot here, just so we can give a shout out to these guys? We got Eli and Eli behind the decks. Sean Simonetti, amazing director, setting this all up. These two young cats from UVM. Thank you very much to Rob Williams for letting us come in and talk to the class.
I got to shout out my staff too at Grassroots. I got to shout out to Devin, Spencer, Dave, Denise, Timmy, Megan, Gina, Will, Seth. Oh, I know I'm forgetting somebody. You're probably going to get a comment.
I was going to say, you are
right
really
now.
Going out there trying to list everyone individually.
I love, we have the best staff of any dispensary in the state. You guys are phenomenal, and the state is just seeing the beginnings of what we're going to do.
Well,